Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Thursday, November 16th, 2023. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. The previous session saw a bit of digestion. Here, a bit of a strong top after PPI data, but not really selling pressure away from the top. Instead, developing a digestive day, which could lead to a high range expansion day today if we can see some follow through outside of yesterday's range. Otherwise, when a one-day narrow range develops, you can oftentimes see a second day develop next to it. So keeping an eye on the previous session's range. Any expansion or failure, for example, through 4,500 starts to lead to a fade back into the previous range. You had the massive push up on CPI data. That was not traded too well. It was exploded through that zone. Perhaps we got to retrade back through that pricing if 4,500 is taken out. So again, keep an eye on 4,500 here. Failure at that zone. Perhaps you see a little bit of push into the previous range down below. At the moment right now, 45.50, big time resistance, is the top of this key range here. So if price turns around and goes outside day up, it may drop back into the range, become two-day narrow range. So again, keeping an eye on 4,500 here for early directional conviction in the ES, but clearly a ton of energy built up inside that range from the previous session. Today, we do have pre-market economic data coming out, including initial jobless claims, Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, and a ton of Fed speak. FOMC member Williams, FOMC member Mester, Fed Waller, Fed Governor Krosner, all speaking here today in a very tight window. So again, we could see an increase of volatility soon. Taking a look here at the NQ, very similar price action, but better location. This one right now rallying up to the previous quarter's high price, which is the high for the year. It's that day right there. And that day was very similar in price action to this day. This day had a bit more range, but you can see a blue bar there, a squat bar. A strong morning top after CPI, and then downtrending price action / compression. And again, that could lead to a similar result, very similar to how we saw price play out last time. Big time explosive move to the upside. Perhaps we fade back into the range and maybe trade back in here. So it could be somewhere between 15.4 and 16 as the new range here, something like this. And again, 15.8, that lower level, keep an eye on that. Any push through that level starts to open up expansion to the downside. So this day right here could be seen as a digestive style day, in addition to the strong pivot high. So again, maybe the high might be in the near term. We might have a bookend high to this low, and maybe a snap back to the middle of that range may be ahead. So again, keeping an eye on 15.8 for early directional conviction today. Taking a look now at crude oil. You'll see right here, crude oil, bit of weakness yesterday. It was a classic inverted checkmark trend day down. The midpoint held. That was the big level right there. That was the level that could have opened up a return back to 80 and maybe higher. Instead, the trend remained intact. Bears continue to control the trend at the moment. And one of the things we talked about back at the end of September and beginning of October is the seasonal pattern and the seasonal tendency of crude oil. It's basically a 2-month downtrend from the first week of October into the first week of December. So we could be extending that trend to the downside up ahead. And again, right now, 80 is the key level. That's a key level here to the upside, and we could bounce back to it, but until we push through it, we're still trending downward below 80 here until proven otherwise, with 74 and 70 down below. From a day type perspective here today, we had a clear move downward here. We're now sitting on top of the previous session's low. To hold that previous session's low could open up a little bit of a midpoint retest. But given the short-term downtrend, the medium-term downtrend, any morning strength could be met with selling pressure for another round of weakness later in the day. Looking at crude oil, or rather gold. Gold is up 0.2% right now. This one's sitting right around 1960 at the moment. We talked about this one here being right at the center of the range after a ton of volatility here. A lot of back and forth from here, here, and back. Ultimately, we're right back to a flat VWAP for the year. And so there could be some sideways chop around that level. And at the moment here, keeping an eye on the 2-day lows. Any push through 2-day lows opens up a return back toward 1950, 1940 below. Above 1980 opens up what could be a retest of the highs, but we've already come off the highs with a 3-point reversal 2 times in a row, and that could lead to further chop with some downside pressure into 1900 as this thing continues to trade inside this larger range here. Taking a look here at the YM, this one's down 0.2%. Very clear compression day in the previous session, narrow range day, less than 65% of average range. Right now, even less, 35% of ADR, 127 points, and inside day right now. So a 2-day narrow range heading into initial jobless claims, Philly Fed here at the 1 hour prior to the RTH Open. So we have some compression here coming into play, sitting right at the September FOMC key level. The November level helped fuel the move into the September. Remember, this one went offered, tried to bounce here, found a strong lower low, and then snapped back to that level, now sitting right at this level. Very bullish uptrend. No clear signs of rejection. The ES and the NQ put in strong pre-market highs yesterday. The YM really didn't. Instead, digestive day, double digestive day with a very bullish upside bias. The edge could be somewhere near the 35,250 level as a short-term edge, but clearly you have the previous quarter's highs up above. So right now this thing remains very, very bullish, but keep an eye on 2-day lows here. Any failure there, and you're rotating back to the breakout point, which would be about 34,400 or so. So again, looking for perhaps a pullback and filling in of this range down the way. But right now, digestive 2-day range. Keep an eye on this range for potential expansion up ahead. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this develops the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.